The golden beams of sunlight cast long shadows across the churchyard as Eliza Cooper stood alone at the altar, her wedding dress billowing gently in the late afternoon breeze. Her groom, Thomas Bailey, was 2 hours late, and the whispers among the departing wedding guests confirmed what she already knew in her heart: she had been abandoned on what should have been the happiest day of her life. Dodge City, Kansas, 1878, was not a place known for its patience, and even the kindly Reverend Simmons had given up waiting, patting her shoulder with a pitying look before retreating to his quarters. Only her mother remained, fretting at the edge of the churchyard, unsure whether to comfort her daughter or shield her from further humiliation. "I suppose he isn't coming, Ma," Eliza said, her voice steadier than she expected. 22 years of life had taught her resilience, but nothing had prepared her for this public rejection. Her mother approached cautiously, as though Eliza might shatter like fine china. "Perhaps there's been an accident." "Thomas is exactly where he wants to be," Eliza interrupted, her fingers tightening around her now wilting bouquet of wildflowers. "Probably halfway to Colorado territory by now, with half our savings in his pocket." The creak of wagon wheels broke through their conversation, drawing both women's attention to the road. A weathered stagecoach pulled up alongside the church, dust billowing in its wake. The door swung open and a tall figure emerged, silhouetted against the setting sun. Eliza squinted, raising a hand to shield her eyes. The stranger approached with long, confident strides, his spurs jingling with each step. As he drew nearer, she could make out a strong jawline shadowed with several days' growth, piercing blue eyes, and a Stetson pulled low over his brow. "Afternoon, ladies," he said, removing his hat and revealing tousled sandy hair. "Name's Adam Donovan. I'm looking for Sheriff Warren." Eliza's mother gestured toward town. "You'll find him at his office, young man. We're in the middle of a situation here." Adam's gaze swept over Eliza, taking in her elaborate white dress, the flowers clutched in her trembling hands, and the conspicuous absence of a groom or wedding party. Understanding dawned in his eyes. "I see," he said softly, his expression unreadable. "Might I be of some assistance?" "Unless you can produce a groom or restore a woman's dignity, I doubt it," Eliza replied, lifting her chin defiantly despite the tears threatening to spill. A hint of a smile touched Adam's lips. "I might not be able to do either, Miss Cooper." "Eliza Cooper," she supplied, not quite understanding why she was engaging with this stranger when her world was crumbling around her. "Miss Cooper, I can offer you a ride back to town." "Seems to me standing in a churchyard waiting for someone who isn't coming might not be how you want to spend the remainder of this day." Eliza's mother bristled. "Now see here, Mr. Donovan, my daughter has been through enough without—" "Ma, please," Eliza interjected. She studied the cowboy carefully. There was something in his direct gaze that spoke of honesty, a rare commodity in her recent experience. "Thank you for the offer, Mr. Donovan. I think I would like to leave this place." Adam nodded, extending his arm. "My wagon's just beyond the church gate." As they walked, Eliza became acutely aware of how absurd she must look, a bride with no wedding, walking away with a stranger. Yet somehow, in that moment, it felt like the only dignified option available to her. "You're not from Dodge City," she observed as he helped her into the wagon, careful of her voluminous skirts. "No, madam, just arrived from Wichita. I'm tracking a man who robbed the bank there. Sheriff Warren wired that someone matching his description was seen in these parts." "A bounty hunter, then?" Adam settled beside her, taking up the reins. "Former Texas Ranger. Now I work for the Pinkerton Agency when they need me." Eliza's mother climbed in behind them, still looking uncertain about the entire situation. "Mr. Donovan, we live at the edge of town, just past the Mercantile." As they pulled away from the church, Eliza couldn't help looking back at the small white building where her dreams had died. The afternoon shadows had grown longer, and somewhere in the distance, thunder rumbled a summer storm approaching, mirroring the turmoil in her heart. "If you don't mind my asking, Miss Cooper, what happened to your intended?" Adam asked, his voice gentle. "Thomas decided banking in Denver held more promise than ranching in Kansas," she replied bitterly. "Apparently, he also decided it held more promise than I did." Adam nodded, his jaw tightening. Some men don't recognize value when they see it. The simple statement, delivered without pity, touched something in Eliza. She had been bracing for sympathy or, worse, condescension. Adam Donovan offered neither, just a straightforward acknowledgement of her worth. They rode in silence through the streets of Dodge City. Despite her humiliation, Eliza held her head high as curious townspeople stared at the abandoned bride being escorted home by a stranger. When they reached the modest Cooper homestead, Adam helped Eliza down from the wagon. Their hands met briefly, and she was surprised by the warmth that spread through her at his touch. "Thank you, Mr. Donovan," she said, finally meeting his eyes directly. "My pleasure, Miss Cooper." He replaced his hat. "I hope tomorrow brings better fortunes." As he prepared to leave, Eliza's mother, who had been watching their interaction with growing interest, spoke up. "Mr. Donovan, we were expecting quite a few people for dinner this evening. The food's already prepared. Perhaps you'd care to join us instead of eating at the hotel, Ma." Eliza hissed, mortified, but Adam smiled, the expression transforming his weather-beaten face. "That's mighty kind of you, Mrs. Cooper. I'd be honored." And so it was that Adam Donovan, Pinkerton agent and former Texas Ranger, found himself seated at the Cooper family dining table that evening, while Eliza, changed out of her wedding dress into a simple blue frock, tried to make sense of the day's dramatic turn of events. Eliza's father, a quiet, solid man who ran the local lumber mill, had taken an immediate liking to Adam. After hearing about the day's events, he seemed almost relieved that Thomas Bailey had shown his true colors before the marriage rather than after. "Bailey always struck me as a man with wandering eyes," Mr. Cooper commented as they ate, "both for opportunity and for ladies." "Henry," Mrs. Cooper chided, glancing worriedly at Eliza. Eliza set down her fork. "It's all right, Ma. I'd rather face the truth than live in delusion." Adam observed her with growing admiration. Most women would be collapsed in tears after such a betrayal, yet here she sat, spine straight, discussing her former fiancé's failings with clear-eyed pragmatism. "If you don't mind my asking, Mr. Donovan, who is this bank robber you're tracking?" Mr. Cooper asked, changing the subject. Adam took a sip of coffee before answering. "A man named James Fletcher. Took $3,000 from the First Bank of Wichita last month, shot a clerk in the process." "Fletcher?" Eliza's head snapped up. "About 6 feet tall with a scar across his right cheek," Adam's eyes narrowed. "You've seen him? He came into the post office where I work 3 days ago, sent a wire to someone in Denver." Eliza frowned, trying to recall the details. He was nervous, kept looking over his shoulder. "Did you happen to see the contents of that wire?" Eliza hesitated, then nodded. "It's against regulations, but sometimes it's unavoidable when you're the one sending it. He was arranging to meet someone at the Colorado National Bank next Tuesday. Said he had the full amount and was ready to make the exchange." Adam leaned forward, suddenly intense. "Miss Cooper, you might have just given me exactly what I need to catch him." "Glad to be of service," she replied, managing a small smile. "After today, it's nice to feel useful for something." After dinner, as Mrs. Cooper bustled around clearing dishes, Adam asked Eliza if she would show him the garden. The summer evening was warm, fireflies beginning to dance among the rose bushes her mother tended with such care. "You handled today with remarkable grace," Adam said as they walked the narrow garden path. "Most would have been broken by such a public betrayal." Eliza laughed softly, though there was little humor in it. "I assure you, Mr. Donovan, I'm not as composed as I appear. I simply refuse to give Thomas the satisfaction of destroying me along with my plans." "What were those plans?" "Thomas owned a small ranch outside town. We were going to expand it, raise horses." She shook her head. "I've always loved horses." My father taught me to ride when I was 6, and I've been helping break colts for neighbors since I was 16. Adam raised an eyebrow. A lady horse trainer? That's not common. No, it isn't. Perhaps that's why Thomas left. He realized I wasn't planning to be just a pretty ornament for his home. She sighed. The land was in his name. The money we saved, half of it mine from years at the post office, is gone with him, so I suppose it's back to sorting mail and living with my parents. Unless you make new plans, Adam suggested quietly. Their eyes met in the fading light, and something unspoken passed between them, a recognition, perhaps, of kindred spirits who understood the value of resilience. I should be leaving at first light tomorrow, Adam said, breaking the moment. If Fletcher's heading to Denver, I need to get there first. Eliza nodded, an unexpected disappointment settling in her chest. It was absurd to feel any attachment to this man she'd just met, especially on the very day she'd been abandoned by another. Yet there was something about Adam Donovan that called to her a steadiness, a quiet strength. I wish you safe travels then, she said, extending her hand. Instead of shaking it, he raised it to his lips in a gesture so unexpected and old-fashioned that Eliza felt her cheeks warm. Thank you for the dinner, Miss Cooper, and for the information. I'm sorry about the circumstances of our meeting, but I'm not sorry to have met you. As he walked away toward his waiting wagon, Eliza stood in the gathering darkness, wondering why the day she'd been abandoned by one man had also brought another into her life, and why that fact suddenly seemed significant. The following morning, Eliza rose early despite having slept poorly. Dreams of Thomas's betrayal had morphed strangely into visions of Adam Donovan riding away, always just beyond her reach. She dressed for work methodically, pinning her thick auburn hair into a practical bun and selecting her plainest dress. The last thing she wanted was to attract attention. The post office was mercifully quiet when she arrived. Her supervisor, Mr. Gladwell, greeted her with uncomfortable sympathy. Eliza, my dear, we didn't expect you today, after yesterday's unfortunate events. I prefer to keep busy, Mr. Gladwell, she said firmly. Idle hands invite melancholy thoughts, he nodded, relieved to be spared an emotional scene. Very sensible. The morning mail needs sorting. Eliza had just settled into her task when the door opened with a jangle of the bell. Her heart performed an unexpected leap when Adam Donovan walked in, looking travel-ready in a leather duster, his saddlebags slung over one shoulder. Miss Cooper, he said, removing his hat. I'm glad to catch you before I leave, Mr. Donovan. I thought you'd be on the road to Denver by now. About to be. He approached her counter. I wanted to thank you again for your hospitality last night and for the information about Fletcher. Of course. She nodded, aware of Mr. Gladwell's curious gaze from his desk in the corner. Adam leaned slightly closer. I was thinking about what you said about your plans for horse breeding. It happens that I know something about horses myself. My family ran a breeding operation in Texas before the war. Eliza's interest piqued despite herself. Is that so? Indeed. I've been thinking of settling down somewhere, starting something similar. Kansas has good land for raising horses. His blue eyes held hers steadily. When I return from Denver, I'd be interested in discussing the possibility further if you'd be amenable. Eliza blinked, trying to process his meaning. Are you proposing a business discussion, Mr. Donovan? A slight smile curved his lips. For starters, I find I'm quite interested in getting to know more about you, Miss Cooper. Before she could formulate a response, the door opened again, admitting Mrs. Teller, the banker's wife and Dodge City's most notorious gossip. Adam straightened, seeming to recognize that the moment for private conversation had passed. I should be going. The stage to Pueblo leaves in 20 minutes, and from there I'll catch the train to Denver. He settled his hat back on his head. I expect to be back this way in about 2 weeks' time. Good luck with your business, Mr. Donovan, Eliza said carefully. He tipped his hat. When I return, perhaps you'll do me the honor of having dinner with me, Miss Cooper. A proper dinner, at the hotel restaurant. Despite Mrs. Teller's badly concealed eavesdropping, Eliza found herself smiling genuinely for the first time since her wedding day disaster. "I believe I would enjoy that, Mr. Donovan." After he left, Mrs. Teller practically lunged at the counter. "Eliza Cooper, was that the man who brought you home from the church yesterday, already making new arrangements, are we?" Eliza met the older woman's prying gaze calmly. "Mr. Donovan is a Pinkerton agent passing through town on business, Mrs. Teller. He was kind enough to assist me during a difficult moment." Mrs. Teller sniffed, clearly disappointed by this prosaic explanation. "Well, I suppose it's just as well you found out about Thomas Bailey's character before the marriage. They say he left with that Wilkins girl from the saloon, took her all the way to Denver, according to my husband." The news should have hurt, but Eliza found she felt more anger than pain. "Then I wish them well together. Now, did you come for your mail, Mrs. Teller? I believe there's something here for you." As the days passed, Eliza settled back into her routine at the post office, though nothing felt quite the same. News of her abandonment at the altar had spread throughout Dodge City, and she endured pitying looks and awkward conversations everywhere she went. Some, like Mrs. Teller, seemed almost gleeful at the drama, while others showed genuine concern. Her parents worried about her, she knew. Each night at dinner, her mother would suggest some new activity or social engagement that might cheer her up, while her father watched her with concerned eyes over his newspaper. The truth was, Eliza wasn't as devastated as everyone seemed to expect. The humiliation had been terrible, yes, but as the shock wore off, she realized that Thomas's departure had awakened her from a kind of sleepwalking state. She had been so focused on becoming Mrs. Bailey that she had stopped questioning whether that was truly what she wanted. And then there was Adam Donovan. Despite having spent barely a few hours in his company, his memory lingered. She found herself wondering where he was, whether he had caught his bank robber, when exactly he might return. "You're mooning again," her friend Clara observed one Sunday after church as they walked together through town. "And don't try to tell me it's about Thomas Bailey. I've known you since we were 7 years old, Eliza Cooper, and you never looked that dreamy over him." Eliza sighed. "It's silly. I barely know the man." "The mysterious Pinkerton agent," Clara grinned. "The one the whole town is talking about, who rescued the abandoned bride and swept her away in his wagon. People are making far too much of that," Eliza protested. "Well, when can we expect this knight in dusty leather to return? Or was his gallantry limited to a single rescue?" Eliza hesitated. "He said he'd be back in about 2 weeks, to discuss horses." Clara burst out laughing. "Horses? Is that what they're calling it these days, Clara?" "He really did mention starting a horse breeding business. He knows I'm interested in that." "And I'm sure that's the only thing about you that interests him," Clara teased. "When do the 2 weeks end?" "Tomorrow," Eliza admitted, trying to ignore the flutter of anticipation the thought provoked. The next day at the post office, Eliza found herself glancing at the door every time the bell jingled. By late afternoon, she had given herself a stern talking to about setting realistic expectations. Adam Donovan was a man with a dangerous job, traveling across territories with limited communication. There were 100 reasons why his return might be delayed. Just as she was preparing to close the office for the day, the door opened once more. This time, the tall figure that entered made her heart skip a beat, but not from pleasure. "Hello, Eliza," Thomas Bailey said, removing his hat and revealing the familiar shock of dark hair. "You're looking well." Eliza stared at him, momentarily speechless. Thomas appeared thinner than when he'd left, with dark circles under his eyes and a nervous energy to his movements. "Thomas," she finally managed. "What are you doing back in Dodge City?" He approached the counter, attempting a winsome smile that once would have charmed her. Now it only highlighted the weakness in his character that she had somehow never noticed before. "I've come to make things right," he said. "I made a terrible mistake, leaving the way I did. I've come to ask your forgiveness and if you can find it in your heart another chance." Eliza studied him, noting the shiftiness in his gaze, the way his fingers tapped restlessly against the counter. "What happened in Denver, Thomas? Things didn't work out with Miss Wilkins?" He flinched at her direct reference to his betrayal. "That was another mistake, a momentary madness." "You're the only woman I've ever truly loved, Eliza. How convenient that you've realized this now." She began organizing the mail for the next day, refusing to give him her full attention. "Where's my money, Thomas? The savings I contributed to our future," he shifted uncomfortably. "That's part of why I'm here. I can repay you. I've come into some funds recently, an unexpected inheritance from an uncle in St. Louis." Something about his explanation rang false, but before Eliza could question him further, the door opened again. Adam Donovan stood there, trail-worn and dusty, his gaze immediately finding Eliza before shifting to Thomas. "Miss Cooper," he said, nodding politely, "I see I'm interrupting." Thomas turned, frowning at the newcomer. "Who are you, Adam Donovan?" He stepped forward, extending his hand. "And you must be Thomas Bailey." Thomas reluctantly shook his hand. "How do you know who I am?" "Your reputation precedes you," Adam said, his tone neutral but his eyes hard. "Miss Cooper, I apologize for the delay in my return. There were complications in Denver." Eliza felt caught between past and present, Thomas's unexpected return and Adam's promised one colliding in a way she could never have anticipated. "Did you find the man you were looking for, Mr. Donovan?" A slight smile crossed his face. "In a manner of speaking." The trail led back here as it happens. Thomas was watching their interaction with growing suspicion. "You two seem well acquainted." "Mr. Donovan was kind enough to help me after you abandoned me at the altar," Eliza said, a new confidence in her voice. "He's a Pinkerton agent." The color drained from Thomas's face. "A Pinkerton?" Adam's posture shifted subtly, becoming more alert. "Is there a problem, Mr. Bailey?" "No, not at all," Thomas said quickly. "I just remembered an urgent matter I need to attend to. Eliza, we'll continue our conversation later." Before either of them could respond, Thomas hurried out the door, nearly knocking over Mr. Gladwell, who was returning from his late afternoon tea. "What on earth?" the postmaster muttered. "Was that Thomas Bailey?" "Yes, and he was just leaving," Eliza said, her mind racing with questions. She turned to Adam. "What just happened?" Adam's expression was grim. "I believe Mr. Bailey recognized my profession for a reason. James Fletcher was arrested in Denver, Miss Cooper, and he had quite a story to tell about his accomplice, a banker's clerk from Dodge City who helped plan the robbery and was supposed to meet him with falsified bank documents." Eliza gasped as understanding dawned. "Thomas." "Thomas was involved in the robbery," Adam nodded. "I didn't have confirmation until I saw his reaction just now. Fletcher described him perfectly, right down to the nervous habit of tapping his fingers when he's lying." "Good heavens," Mr. Gladwell exclaimed. "I always thought that young man was too smooth by half." "Mr. Gladwell, I need to speak with Sheriff Warren immediately," Adam said. "Would you be kind enough to accompany Miss Cooper home? I don't want her alone if Bailey comes back." As the two men exchanged words, Eliza struggled to process this revelation. Thomas, a bank robber, had she ever truly known him at all? "Of course, Mr. Donovan," the postmaster agreed. "Come along, Eliza, I'll see you safely home." As she gathered her things, Adam approached her. "I'm sorry about this, Miss Cooper, not exactly the return I had planned." Despite the shock of Thomas's deception, Eliza found herself smiling. "You did say there would be complications, Mr. Donovan." "Indeed." His eyes softened as they met hers. "Our dinner will have to wait, I'm afraid. But I hope the invitation still stands once this business is concluded." "It does," she said, surprised by her own certainty. He nodded, satisfied. "Good. Now please go home and stay there. Bailey may be desperate if he thinks we're onto him." The next few hours passed in a blur. Mr. Gladwell escorted Eliza home, explaining the situation to her stunned parents. Her father immediately took his shotgun down from above the fireplace, muttering about teaching that scoundrel Bailey a lesson. while her mother alternated between thanking Providence for preventing the wedding and fretting about the scandal. As night fell, a knock at the door startled them all. Mr. Cooper answered it, shotgun in hand, only to find Sheriff Warren and Adam on the porch. "Evening, Henry," the sheriff said. "We've got Bailey in custody. Caught him trying to book passage on the evening stage to Wichita." Relief washed over Eliza. "So it's true." "He was involved in the robbery," Adam nodded, stepping into the parlor. "He confessed. Seems he was working as a correspondent for the Wichita Bank before he came to Dodge City. He helped Fletcher identify the weak points in their security, then created false documents that would have allowed them to transfer the stolen money legitimately through banks in Denver. And I nearly married him," Eliza said, the full weight of her narrow escape finally hitting her. "If he hadn't left me at the church, you'd be the wife of a criminal," her mother finished, looking pale. "Oh, Eliza," Sheriff Warren cleared his throat, "there's something else you should know, Miss Cooper. Bailey claims he left you at the altar because he got cold feet about involving you in his schemes. Says he did it to protect you." Eliza laughed incredulously. "How noble of him, and I suppose running off with the saloon girl was also for my protection." "That part he was less clear about," the sheriff admitted with a slight smile. "Anyway, he'll be transferred to Wichita for trial next week. Thought you'd want to know." After the sheriff left, Adam lingered on the porch with Eliza. The night was clear, stars scattered across the sky like diamond dust. "You've had quite a day," Adam observed. "Quite a month, really." Eliza shook her head. "I don't know whether to laugh or cry. I spent years thinking I knew what I wanted who I wanted. Now I realize I didn't know anything at all." Adam leaned against the porch railing. "Sometimes it takes losing your way to find your true path." "Is that what happened to you? You said your family had a horse ranch in Texas." His expression grew distant. "Lost it all in the war." "My father and older brother died at Shiloh. Mother tried to keep things going, but it was too much. I joined the Rangers thinking I'd earn enough to buy back our land someday." "Did you?" He shook his head. "By the time I had the means, someone else had built a life there. Didn't seem right to take it from them." He smiled faintly. "So I've been wandering, taking jobs with the Pinkertons, saving my money, waiting for the right opportunity, I suppose." Eliza studied him in the starlight, this man who had appeared so unexpectedly in her life. "And now?" "After you've turned Thomas in, now I find myself thinking about settling down. Kansas has good land for horses, as I mentioned." His gaze met hers, steady and clear. "And other attractions that Texas can't match." Heat rose to Eliza's cheeks. "Mr. Donovan, Adam," he corrected gently. "Adam," she repeated, liking the feel of his name. "I've had a rather dramatic lesson in the dangers of rushing into things." He nodded. "I respect that. I'm not proposing marriage, Eliza, not yet. I'm proposing a chance for us to get to know each other. To see if what I suspect might be between us is real." "And what do you suspect?" He took her hand, his touch sending a warmth through her that had nothing to do with the summer night. "That sometimes fate has a way of bringing the right people together at the wrong time, which, paradoxically, makes it exactly the right time." Eliza laughed softly. "For a man who tracks criminals for a living, you have a poetic soul." "Only recently discovered," he admitted with a smile. "It seems to emerge when I'm around you." 2 days later, Adam escorted Eliza to dinner at the Grand Hotel, the finest establishment in Dodge City. News of Thomas Bailey's arrest had spread through town like wildfire, followed closely by speculation about Eliza's relationship with the handsome Pinkerton agent who had apprehended him. "Everyone is staring," Eliza murmured as they were seated at a table by the window. "Let them," Adam replied, unconcerned. "Small towns thrive on gossip. Next month they'll be talking about someone else's drama." Over a dinner of roast beef and potatoes, they talked for hours. Adam told her about his years with the Rangers, tracking outlaws across the Texas frontier. Eliza shared stories of growing up in Dodge City as it transformed from a rough cattle town to a more civilized community. "What I don't understand," she said as they lingered over coffee, is why you stopped here that day. If you were tracking Fletcher to Denver, Dodge City wasn't on your route." Adam's eyes crinkled at the corners. "I wasn't tracking Fletcher that day. I was following a lead on another case, entirely one that didn't pan out. Stopping at the church was a complete accident. I was looking for the sheriff to tell him I was in town." "An accident," Eliza repeated, wondering at the chain of coincidences that had brought them together. "Or fate," Adam suggested, his hand finding hers across the table. Over the following weeks, as summer turned to autumn, Adam Donovan became a fixture in Dodge City. After testifying at Thomas Bailey's trial in Wichita, he returned to announce he'd purchased a small ranch 10 miles outside town land that had good water access and pasture perfect for raising horses. Eliza continued working at the post office, but every evening after work and all-day Sundays, she could be found at Donovan Ranch, helping Adam establish his breeding program. Her knowledge of local horses proved invaluable, and her skill with breaking colts impressed even the seasoned ranch hands Adam hired. As the first snows of winter dusted the Kansas prairie, Adam invited the Cooper family to dinner at his newly completed ranch house. After the meal, he asked Eliza to walk with him to the stables to check on a mare about to foal. The stable was warm and fragrant with the smell of hay and horses. Adam led her to a stall where a beautiful Palomino mare lay on a bed of straw, her sides heaving gently. "She'll be fine," Eliza said, patting the horse's neck. "First foals always make everyone nervous." "Speaking of firsts," Adam said, turning to face her, "these past months have been the happiest of my life, Eliza. You've helped me build something here that's more than just a ranch. You've helped me create a home." He took her hands in his. 6 months ago, I found a bride abandoned in a churchyard. I didn't know then that I was looking at my future, but I think some part of me recognized you anyway." Eliza's heart raced as Adam lowered himself to one knee, drawing a small velvet box from his pocket. "I'm not Thomas Bailey," he said solemnly. "I won't make promises I can't keep or pretend to be someone I'm not. But I will promise you this. I will love you honestly, respect you completely, and build a life with you that honors both our dreams." He opened the box, revealing a simple gold band set with a single perfect diamond. "Eliza Cooper, would you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" Tears blurred Eliza's vision as she looked down at the man kneeling before her, this steadfast, honorable man who had entered her life at her lowest moment and helped her rise higher than she'd ever been. "Yes," she whispered, then more strongly, "Yes, Adam Donovan, I will marry you." As he slipped the ring onto her finger and rose to kiss her, the Palomino mare nickered softly, as if offering her own blessing to the couple who would soon share their lives together. On a bright spring morning in 1879, almost a year to the day after she had stood abandoned in the churchyard, Eliza Cooper became Mrs. Adam Donovan in a simple ceremony attended by family and friends. This time, when she walked to the altar in her mother's restored wedding gown, the man waiting for her met her eyes with unwavering certainty. Reverend Simmons smiled at the couple, a look of satisfaction on his face. "Dearly beloved," he began, "we are gathered here today to witness a union that, though born from unexpected circumstances, stands as testament to the mysterious workings of Providence." As they exchanged vows, Eliza thought about the twisted path that had led her to this moment. Thomas Bailey's betrayal, once the greatest pain of her life, now seemed like a blessing in disguise, the catalyst that had cleared the way for true happiness. After the ceremony, the wedding party gathered at Donovan Ranch for a celebration that lasted well into the evening. As twilight settled over the land, Adam led his bride away from the festivities to the pasture where their first foals of the season played on spindly legs. "Happy, Mrs. Donovan?" he asked, his arm around her waist. "Happier than I ever imagined possible," she replied, leaning into his embrace. "And grateful for that day in the churchyard, though I wouldn't have believed it then." Adam kissed her temple gently. Sometimes the darkest moments lead us to the brightest futures, and sometimes a wrong turn leads exactly where we were meant to be all along. As stars appeared in the darkening sky, the couple returned to their guests, to the music and laughter of their wedding celebration, secure in the knowledge that their story begun in abandonment and rescued by chance had found its proper ending in love.